Good evening, everyone. My name is John Taves. I'm the sadly sober event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, and the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Nunawak, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples. And of course, McNally Robinson itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We are gathered here today to celebrate the launch of The Lush Life, a not-so-sober second look by Gregg Shilliday, illustrated by Dale Cummings. We are, of course, grateful to Bottoms Up Press and Great Plains Press for bringing this book into the world and for partnering with us to make this launch a possibility. Both Greg and Dale will be up here in just a moment to chat about this book, which of course celebrates the people, places, and infinite bottles of a life well lubricated. This will be a relatively efficient event as there is an after party to get to. So I will be back at the end just to review Simon procedure. This is where I assume all guilt. So I'll just very quickly introduce both of the speakers. Greg will come up, he'll read a little bit. Dale will come up and explain a little bit about the drawings, and then Greg will bring us home. And then I'll tell you how to get a book signed. But for right now, Dale Cummings is a National Newspaper Award-winning political cartoonist and author of the best-selling You Know You're From Manitoba If. He is a medical freak with 2 functioning livers. Gregg Shilliday is a journalist, publisher, author, and encyclopedist. He is known in many bars as PM, Profit Margin, and if you want more details, as he says, check the damn Google. Here is Gregg Shilliday.
I started out, not this morning, this afternoon. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Doing some Lush. And I was reminded of the 25 years that I was a book publisher for Great Plains. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the book launches were quite boring. A professor usually will get up and read all 27 chapters of his book. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to read maybe 1, and if you demand it, 2 chapters, and they're short. The first one, there's some free pressers here, I think. The first one is about when I was a young copy boy at the Free Press, which was a very Fellini-esque kind of experience. And I'm going to read. It's called Have Dabs and Hooch. After running away from home in the early 70s and doing odd jobs for a couple of years, very odd jobs, I was hired as a copy boy by the Winnipeg Free Press. A copy boy did everything in a newsroom that no one else wanted to do. Delivering the news edition of the paper from the press room to the editors, running copy upstairs to the composing room, and most importantly, supplying Mickeys of vodka and scotch to the senior editors for their morning meeting. Head copy boy Robbie, an elderly chain-smoking epileptic, told me on my first day that the editors were like gods. Whatever they wanted, it was our job to supply it. That included the booze run in the mornings. Also placing sports bets with the proprietor of the Chinese restaurant across the street. And picking up all and sundry bosses from the neighborhood beverage rooms at night and driving them home in that lovely blue Free Press car. Now, Goldie, you probably remember some of this. That was in the pre-union days. The newspaper was run by a brigadier general who believed in an enlightened dictatorship. We were all paid a pittance, but no one was ever fired, except me once. Gays and lesbians worked away without fear or prejudice, and a doctor was on site to deal with sore throats and sexually transmitted diseases. As a young copy boy, I was particularly drawn to the august figures that populated the editorial board. There were the Defoes, the family dynasty begun with John Wesley Defoe, who made the Free Press into one of the great newspapers, through to grandsons John and Christopher Defoe, who helped me understand the vagaries of wine. George Robinson taught me how to smoke a pipe. Didn't stick. F.S. Manor explained pre-war Vienna. Sean Heron, yes, he's related to the famous Heron and all the spying shows nowadays. Schooled me in the differences between Jameson and Bushmills. Eccentricities were the rule rather than the exception. An older reporter known as Mad Dog raced into the newsroom one morning. This is 1974 or 5, right? Exclaiming that a very reliable source had told him where to find a Sasquatch in the mountains in a different province. The city editor, Harold Wilson, who was pretty close to that character from Spider-Man, puffed on his cigar, nodded, and ordered Mad Dog to keep receipts. And don't forget your camera. Speaking of cameras and city editors, one afternoon I took a phone call from a woman in the North End who was watching two birds making love in her outdoor bird bath. Dutifully, I passed on this, photographer's here. Dutifully, I passed this on to the city editor. He immediately called up our award-winning chief photographer, Jack Ablett. Moments later, the photo room door slammed open, and Jack, festooned with 4 or 5 expensive cameras, climbed up onto the sports desk and ran from one desk to another all the way down the newsroom. Ending up on Harold's desk, Jack shouted, "Let me get this straight. You want me to drive up to Saucony Avenue and take a picture of 2 robins fucking in a bird bath?" Another editor, a transplanted Brit. Now, I was telling this story for some of the CBC folks that I don't know if they're here. He had been drinking most of the night at the Dustman's Lounge across the street from the old Free Press. He did meet me to pick him up in a Free Press car. Stumbling back, he blurrily decided to take a nap on a leather sofa in an empty back room on the 4th floor. The nap became a blackout, and the Brit didn't hear a crew come in to apply a fresh coat of varnish to the wooden floor. In the morning, he woke up on his back, on the floor, with his pants, jacket, and hair stuck into the varnish. If you look carefully today, you can still see strands of hair sticking up like centipedes in amber. The newsroom then was not a modern antiseptic multimedia content provider. Cigarettes were smoked and stubbed into the floor. Women were confined to the lifestyle section, and booze was everywhere. Sports editor routinely accepted cases of beer or whiskey from industry reps hoping to curry favor. Columnists kept a bottle in their desk drawer to stimulate inspiration when perspiration wasn't working. And as I noted earlier, the senior boffins couldn't function without refreshments at 10:30 a.m. My job was to walk over to the nearby Liquor Commission on Ellis, stand in line with the shaking Lushes, and order 2 half bottles of vodka and whiskey from the men behind the counter. In those days, they were behind the counter. and they would drift away somewhere in the back and try and find your order, and you'd wait there for 10 or 15 minutes. Those are the days. So then I would rush back to the newsroom to serve the editors their favorite hooch in white styrofoam cups. The first morning did not go well. Albert Booth, the managing editor, looked at the half-full cups and snapped, "Shilliday, where's the half-dabs?" I stared at him blankly. Then he said, "Where the hell is Robbie?" I explained that Robbie had passed on this important job to me. Albert grimaced and pointed to the door. "Go down to the cafeteria and bring us back the tray of half-dabs, pronto." In the cafeteria, worried about my imminently short career as a coffee boy, I asked the nice Russian lady behind the counter if she had any idea what a half-dab was. "Well, if they allow drinking in this place, that would be mixed. And those editors upstairs, they like Fresca." She winked at me. "If they allow drinking here." Dale's gonna explain how he did these complicated drawings in wine. Sir?
People here. I'm really sorry that I'm supposed to say something about that, but I'm gonna promise you that Taylor Swift ain't coming. Okay, so you want drawing? Is my head bobbing around too much? Just say so. I was talking to my parents. All right. So we want some about drawing with wine. Well, first of all, don't do it. Actually, I enjoy drawing with wine. I like drawing with wine because it comes off the pen really nicely. You know, I get lines I can't get with ink, at least with the pen I was using anyhow. You know, and I like it, but the goddamn stuff won't dry. You know, just wait forever. You know, well, first of all, before you even started that, you don't use raw wine. You have to simmer it down, right? So just a little bit at a time, because you don't want a whole lot. You don't need a whole lot. And just too much, it's all don't go bad on you. It goes bad anyhow, but you just got more to go bad on you. So you put in a little pot, you rock it back and forth on the stove until it thickens up to more of a ink consistency, and then you draw with it, and then you wait for it to dry. And the line part is always thicker than the wash part, and that takes a whole lot longer to dry. So you get out the hair dryer to boost it along, right? Burned out a hair dryer doing this goddamn job. Burned it out because the entire buy another cheap hair dryer. And so you dry that, and get it, and when it's thick, I don't think you ever really get dry. I think you just get a dry crust on top of it, right? You said, okay, now I can spray it with fixative, right? Workable fixative. Because if you spray it too soon, those lines will just go on you, right? Mix up in the spray because this damn stuff isn't dry yet. And if you also don't spray it and you apply a wash, well, that line's just going to disappear into the wash and you start all over again. So I've done this several 3 drawings at least that I thought I was damn near finished, and I kind of pushed it by trying to give it that fixative spray, one last time, and just all gone to hell and start all over again, So yeah, that's what it's like. So you draw, and then you wait for the line part to dry, and you hair blow it in, and you wait some more, and then you spray it with a workable fixative, and then you lay on a layer of wash. And you wait for that sucker to dry, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. And then you do this all over again. You keep doing this repeatedly till you finally you think you're done with the goddamn thing. So, yeah, so it takes a long time.
Volunteer to do this.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was my dumb ass idea. Had I known what I was getting into, I'd never done it. No, I don't, I wouldn't have done it at all. Never. But, yeah, and, but I wouldn't want to discourage anybody from trying it, just for the hell of it, you know? I mean, if you don't have a deadline or nothing to do, you know, just fiddle around and drop with wine. It's kind of fun, you know? But you know, you can get old waiting for it to dry, you know, so, and it is a pain in the butt when you're trying to get the damn stuff dried, so you
How much
can't.
did you drink?
I didn't drink any of that stuff. I tried mixing some of it up. I mixed my ink up that took, what I was doing here was mixing old vine Baco Noir and a Cabernet Sauvignon. And it was giving me a decent color that I could work with, and but stuff dries a different color, you know. So you mix up a lot of batches of different wines to see what you're going to get, because it'll dry. It never dries the color that goes on the carpet with, you know. That's nice and red there. That's good. But as soon as it dries, it's going to turn, I don't know, brown, or gray, or yellow, or any color but the right color, you know. So, you know, you mix them up. Yeah, I did try. Yeah, I did try some of my concoctions before I cooked, not after. But before I cooked them, geez, it's horrible. Don't do it. Don't do it. You know, I mean, and if you're work for a winery or a professional wine vendor, sure, but that ain't me. And, you know, or a chemist, maybe that ain't me either. So that's, you know, that's pretty much what it takes to draw with wine. Cook it up, or just, you know, sort of simmer it up, get it thick enough to draw with, come off your pen, and start drawing, and then wait, and wait some more, and then draw some more, and wait some more, because you can't push it, because it'll either go to hell on you one way or another, or even if it doesn't happen, it's not completely dry. You can't slap it down on the scanner and scan it in and send it off, because it'll stick. Yeah, so yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, go have fun with it, but don't try to do it commercially.
Don't do this.
Yeah, I just, you know, and any questions? But you know, it is fun. It is fun. It was fun to work with when you're not in a hurry to get anything done. It's because I like to draw with wine, and look them up online. There are plenty of great wine artists out there. Look them up. They can do some marvelous stuff with this.
Picasso.
Well, he might have. I don't know. What do you do with everything else? He might have. I don't know. Yeah. So I don't think I got a whole lot more to tell you about that. Yeah.
What kind of pen did you use?
Oh, I was using I think it was one of the old fashioned different ink pens, you know. It was a Pro Quill, different pen. I think it was a Hunts 102 nib on it.
You're my new attorney.
So I guess, over to you there.
Thank you, buddy. I want to go to the after party at Carnival, but if you want me to read one more short chapter, I will. It's up to you. I'm not enthusiastic, but I know. It's a very short book, but I can't find the next chapter. The ink is also wine ink. Everything was done with the printer and the designer to make it all wine. Thank you. This is called The Boy and His Dog and His Wife. For most of my life, I have tried to avoid that long, hot, buggy block of time stuck between the green vibrancy of spring and the crispness of fall. Crispness of fall. Winter, of course, is not a subject for polite company in Winnipeg. So I'm left with only 2 civilized seasons, especially for a drinker. Spring is time for fresh white, new white wines that smell of apples and lavender. Fall is a time for big-bodied reds to warm you as you sit for the logs to catch a blaze. But a few years ago, my aversion to summer disappeared. After enduring 6 months of record-breaking cold and snow, I came to realize that radical action was necessary. Unlike many Manitobans, I didn't throw in the towel and buy a one-way ticket to Vancouver. Rather, I embarked on a more challenging course. I embraced summer. It started innocently. In April, my wife, Ingeborg, she's not listening as usual. You texting somebody there? Ingeborg informed me in a calm voice that she would leave me if we didn't spend more time at her father's lakeside cottage near Gimli. My protest about mosquitoes, outhouses, and fish flies were rejected with a stony, nearsighted stare. Then in May, the author Jake McDonald offered to sell us a half share in his floating island cottage near Manaki. Here was a golden opportunity to encounter a whole new group of budding insects. I hedged, my wife said yes, and so it was I started my transformation into a summer person. The first step was acquiring a new wardrobe. In the past, my main concession to summer was switching from a wool tie to a silk one. Now Ingeborg had me trying on shorts. A former girlfriend, Charlie, are you here? Your girlfriend. She said, "You're the only man I know who could be knock-kneed and bow-legged at the same time." My wife, a very vain woman, who refused to wear glasses until the last couple of weeks, claimed not to notice, and 2 pairs of mini pants were soon purchased. In short order, we had a basement filled with coolers, gas lamps, sleeping bags, economy-sized cans of bug repellent, life jackets, sunblock bottles, and sinister-looking canisters of bear spray. I doubt the US Marines going to Grenada were better prepared. Then, alternating between Gimli and Manaki, we began to do our weekend treks to cottage country. Sweet summer. The first weekend, after 2 hours in the hot car, with the wife humming the song list from The Sound of Music, and a very flatulent Airedale dog, we arrived at my father-in-law's cottage. Visions of a hammock, a novel, and a large gin and tonic were quickly put on hold. My wife and Hans, my father-in-law, had inspected the garden and discovered a potato beetle infestation. Checking the fine print on my bug repellent strapped to my belt, I couldn't find any reference to potato beetle. I spent the next few hours pulling wriggling brown grubs from the leaves of my father-in-law's approximately 2.5 million plants. Afterwards, Hans generally offered to let me chop up a cord of firewood to add to his approximately 2.5 million stack logs. On my first mighty swing of the axe, I'm an outdoorsman, you all know this. I missed the log, buried the head 8 inches into the ground, and severed the cottage's water line. It provided a pleasant cooling spray on a hot summer afternoon. The next weekend we spent at Menaki. Did I mention this was an island cottage? With her keen analytical mind, Ingeborg determined we would need a boat. And as it turned out, the local marina had an old cruiser called the Brown Scout. It had sat for some years in the boatyard, covered in cobwebs and fish-flying corpses. My wife, squinting nearsightedly, pronounced it cute. A couple of hours later, we were on the water. Over the course of the weekend, I trolled expensive new lures in search of board schools of fish, and unsuccessfully tried to figure out how the chemical toilet worked. Meanwhile, my wife read novels and drank large gins and tonic. Finally, on Sunday evening, we prepared to motor back to Menaki Marina. As we pulled away from the cottage, my wife suggested I check the gas tank. Chuckling at her naivete, I explained to her I'd only driven a few miles in the search for fish. At that very moment, the motor coughed once, sputtered twice, and then died. We were in the middle of Gun Lake, 2 miles from the marina, with a storm coming up. I was not dismayed. After spending the previous year editing a 3-volume history of Manitoba, I remembered the accounts of the first voyageurs paddling their giant freighter canoes. With their heroic efforts in mind, I handed my wife a paddle. And we began paddling to Menaki. 2 miserable hours later, some American fishermen stopped and took pity on us and gave me a little bit of gas. My dog, Brigadier, showing the loyalty Airedales are famous for, tried to jump in their boat. After giving him a solid whack with my paddle, he remembered his role as man's best friend. Arriving finally at the marina, we could see clustered groups of cottagers preparing to depart for the city. Somehow sensing that entertainment was about to present itself, they stopped loading their cars and turned to watch me attempt to dock the Brown Scout. 10 minutes later, I had developed a whole new appreciation for our sturdy little boat. Dozens of wood splinters floated in the water from my numerous attempts to ram and sink the dock. Desperately, I charged the listing structure, slammed into reverse, spun sideways, A spontaneous wave of applause erupted from the shore. They're still my friends. Later, looking forward to a 3-hour drive back to Winnipeg with a quietly sobbing wife and a hiccuping, farting dog, I congratulated myself on my transformation into a summer person. As we crossed the bridge out of town, and that's a Jake and Donald reference there, you might remember his book. I admit I allowed myself to fantasize briefly about the soft snowflakes, warm rum toddies, and the dry cold of our wonderful Manitoba winters.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Dale. We'll now move along to the signing portion, so feel free to just line up right down here, get a copy of the book signed by Greg and or Dale, and please just remember to pay for the book before you leave the store. Thank you all so much for coming. Have a wonderful one.